Hello, welcome everyone. Glad you're here. So let's get right into it. We'll talk about, let's just give my agenda. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this one slide. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of incident problem, and I'll throw change in there too. Incident problem, change, configuration management. I promise it'll be very, very quick. So these are ITIL processes that you probably already have, certainly at some level of maturity in your organization. So incident management, the goal of incident management, first of all, what is an incident? An incident is something I've already got, something I have right now that's now not working. It was working and now it's not working. So it's either broken completely, or it's slow, or it's intermittent, whatever. Or I don't know how to use it. I mean, there could be a lot of reasons why I might call a service desk and try and get an incident fixed. Now, the fix of an incident is actually from the user perspective, and that's what we're really talking about today is user satisfaction and first call resolution from the user's perspective. So at the incident level, what we're really talking about now is that someone calls in and says, hi, I've got an issue, and the service desk is able to resolve that issue from the user's point of view. The user's back up and running, and that is the goal. That's the goal of incident management, get the user back up and running as quickly as possible. So one of the ways of judging whether incident management is working well is how fast things happen. So it's very time sensitive. How fast can I get somebody back up and running? And that we'll talk more about that as we get into this a little bit. Now, if incidents continue to happen over time, perhaps even the same incident continues to happen over time, ITIL then invokes a process, or wants you to invoke a process called problem management. So we have either a very serious incident that we don't ever want to see happen again, a very large impact incident, or we have a lot of small incidents that keep happening and are very annoying and are starting to have a negative impact on the productivity of the user community. So we want to get rid of those, and we want them to go away, and we never want to see them again. So the way we would do that in ITIL is a human being would decide that we're going to call that a problem now, not an incident, but rather, in this case, we're moving it to a problem. And the problem then is basically the goal of problem management is to get to the root cause of the incidents, plural, and fix them, remove the root cause, remove what's causing this to happen, usually by implementing a change, and then we don't see those incidents anymore. They just never come back. And that's an ideal scenario. Sometimes problem management gets to the root cause of the incident and realizes, I don't think we can fix this. Now, it's either going to, what does that mean? It's either too difficult, it's too expensive, I can't take systems down for as long as it would need to fix it. There's a lot of reasons why you would decide, once you actually knew what was causing it, not to fix it permanently, and in which case you would come up with a workaround, and that workaround would then be sent back to the service desk so they would know all about it, and it would remain what ITIL calls a known error. So I talked about maybe putting in a change. A change is simply the status of a given object, or what ITIL calls a configuration item, a thing, a server, a desktop, a router, a switch. So the status changes. So its current configuration changes. So that when something changes, we call that in ITIL a change. And the goal of change management is simple, and that is absolute control of every change to the production environment. Now, that's not the topic of today's webinar, and we could certainly talk for an hour about that, but basically that's what ITIL wants, absolute control of every change to the production environment. Where are those changes recorded once they've happened? Well, the ideal scenario, of course, is to have what ITIL refers to as a configuration management system, and in the old days that was called a CMDB, a configuration management database. In the newer version of ITIL, we talk about having multiple CMDBs and multiple configuration management databases that are basically federated into a virtual or single view of the infrastructure. That sounds complicated, but what it really means is, look, you already have a lot of sources of configuration data. You've got a server tool that's going out and discovering all the servers and maybe what's on them. You've got network monitoring tools that go out and discover all the routers and switches and maybe even looks at the configuration of the routers and configuration of the level of the operating system and maybe the specific changes you've made and how the router's configured or the rules that are involved in the router. So all those things exist. And so you already have these tools, and they're already going out, discovering these various components and putting this information into a little database that goes along with the tool, probably, unfortunately, a proprietary database that is specific to that server tool or that network tool or that monitoring tool or whatever. So you've probably got all this data that already exists. And you may have what we call rogue databases, which would be geeks or techies who are out there working hard for the benefit of both IT and the company. Don't think that they're doing anything wrong. And they have a database on their laptop, which is an Excel spreadsheet. And that Excel spreadsheet has lists of various things that they're responsible for, that they make changes in, that they are going to be held accountable for making sure that that piece, that individual component, or that section of the infrastructure is going to continue to function. So we have those kinds of databases. In any case, we have a lot of information and a lot of stuff out there. But what ITIL wants is what we call a single source of truth. One place that one can go to and one can see the infrastructure that you have. Now, you can say to me sometimes, and some people say to me, well, we have that right now. We have asset management. And asset management, I understand, and is necessary. Asset management has a different agenda than configuration management does. Asset management wants to keep track of every piece, and they want to know where it is physically. They want to know how much it cost or what its current value is. They want to know if we've purchased it, when it will be written off so that its capitalization is finished. Or if it's a leased item, they want to know when it comes off lease so that when the lease company calls and says, hey, I want that stuff back, we know where it is, we know how to get it, and we've planned in advance for the replacement of that leased item. That, I believe, is what the agenda is for asset management. Whereas the configuration database is different in that it wants, now it could be the same database, don't get me wrong, it could be the same database. It's just extra fields covering the asset agenda versus the configuration agenda. So the configuration agenda is, I want to know where this thing is. I don't really care physically where it is, but I probably do. I want to know which other items it talks to. So I want to know the relationship between the items. Which one depends on the other, if it's a parent-child relationship, which one's the parent, which one's the child, is it a two-way discussion or conversation between them? Are there multiples of those that actually relate to a single other CI? I want to know this relationship game, and then I want to know how that component relates and rolls up to a system, might be part of a larger system, and how that system relates to a service, and that service then relates to the business and the business process that the IT service is supporting. That's really what configuration data is about, and that's what configuration data is designed to tell us. Change management is the process which updates the configuration data. When a change is made, the last thing you do is update the paperwork. So there's a quick overview of 4 processes in ITIL. First, call resolution. I call in, I've got an issue. The service desk answers the phone and they say, okay, and they have an answer. Now, the faster they have the answer, the better for me. I'm calling in. So a lot of the time, and what I believe to be maybe, it depends on the organization, but 70, 80% of the time, they already know the answer because they've already heard this incident before. So it's 20% of the time, maybe it's a brand new incident, but 80% of the time, it's not. So I'm calling in about an incident they already know about. If the process is strong and the tool is strong, I should be able to get a pretty quick answer right there on that same phone call. And remember, the goal of incident management is both time-bounded, time-related, and also getting the user back up and running as quickly as possible from the user's perspective. Okay? So why I keep saying that is because maybe I get the user back up, but I don't actually fix the issue. I let it remain broken, if you will, but not for that user. I've taken a step that gets the user back up, but the incident still exists. I'll talk more about that later. Is first call resolution desirable? Of course. From the user's perspective, it's all they want. Whenever you call anybody with an issue, an incident, you don't know that word, but you call it with an issue and say, hey, I can't do this, I can't do that, or I was working and it used to work and now it doesn't, I can't print, I don't know what's wrong with my email, those types of things. I just want it to work. That's all I want. The user wants it to work, nothing else. They don't want to know why it's not working. I suppose if it's a major outage, they would be comforted with the fact that, yes, we understand. We have a larger outage and you are affected by it. I'm sorry. And I'll get back to you when everything's working. It's not you and it's not your machine. That would be of interest to the user. But all in all, they don't really care why it doesn't work. They just want it to work, just like everyone else in the world. What I find interesting is, we're all computer IT people, and so we know all about technology and things like that. But when it comes to cell phones, we're furious when we have no service. When we don't get a dial tone, we're just as bad as any other user. We look at that cell phone, even though we know really in our heart it's a radio transmitter and receiver, and those radio waves might bounce differently depending on where I'm standing, et cetera, et cetera. Doesn't matter. We're still furious because it doesn't work. We just want it to work. So do the user. Is there anything better than first call resolution? Really only one thing better than first call resolution, and that is not having to call. In other words, it didn't break. It doesn't break. So therefore, I don't have to call. That's pretty much the only thing better than first call resolution. How do tools help? Well, tools help a lot. In fact, it's almost impossible to do this without the help of automation. So first of all, when incidents come into a service desk, I need to keep track of the incidents. That's first and foremost. I need to record every incident that comes into a service desk, no matter how it comes in, because it could come in different ways. It could come in the traditional way with a phone call from a user who's having an issue right now. It could come into the service desk via a monitoring tool or an exception event that says, hey, there used to be a router here and I don't see it now. So it could come in via email or text or any of those things as well. There's lots of ways that something can come into a service desk. But for first call resolution, it's probably going to be a user phone call. When the user calls in, they want pretty much a quick answer. The tool's first of all it's going to create a knowledge base, I hope, of incidents that have come in. It's going to create a list of all the incidents that have come in. That's step one. Then it's going to hopefully tie those to some specific resolutions. And there's going to be resolution fields within the incident, and those are going to lead to a knowledge base of resolutions. That knowledge base of resolutions hopefully will lead to some knowledge management, which requires some human intervention. And then that managed knowledge works its way into an FAQ, or frequently asked questions page, which may then become a self-service portal, either through the tool or on the web. And that's a great thing as long as the self-service portal is another channel, an additional channel for the users to seek out the answers. Why I say additional channel is because I'm of a certain age, which may like to call and talk to actual human beings. Others, now I'm also a geek, so I'm interested in self-service. I can download drivers and install files on my machine just with the rest of them. But soon after, the next speaker, Aaron, is a bit younger than I am, and Aaron has grown up in an age where self-service, I believe, was pretty normal, where you can go out and just boom, there it is, and there's the answer, there's the question, there's the answer, and every single human being who's listening to this webinar has gone out to Google and typed, how do I fill in the blank? I'm working on my house, and I typed, how do I wire a three dipole switch or something like that. Anyway, I didn't know how to do it. I went out, asked Google. Google gave me a video. 2 minutes later, I had the thing work, and I didn't electrocute anybody. Life was good. So we're all to the point where we now know that there's this knowledge online, and there's this crowdsourced concept of just asking the world how to do something and seeing if we can't get an answer back. So the concept of self-service has made its way into our everyday life. So the idea here is that we manage our internal knowledge to the point where we tell the users what we want them to hear in terms of what knowledge there is available. And often that leads them to a pretty instantaneous first call resolution, which does not generate a phone call, does not generate an incident ticket, etc. All good stuff. That knowledge needs to be searchable, needs to be absolutely usable, accessible from the user, and I don't mean just physically accessible or electronically accessible. I mean the language in it needs to make it accessible so that average human beings and people in the marketing department can understand what's going on, not just geeks in IT. How does ITIL process maturity impact first call resolution? Well, first of all, let's make sure we understand what I'm about to say. That I believe that every service desk should seek the highest possible percentage of first call resolution, because that's a key element of customer satisfaction. When the customer calls, they want it to work. They want it to work quick. The faster you get them the answer, the happier they are, the more thrilled they'll be, etc. So that statement is an absolute. That doesn't change with what I'm about to say. So I said earlier that probably 80% of the calls that come in are repeat calls that we have already heard, and we probably already resolved, and we probably already have answers for, and therefore they're going to be in the knowledge base. That's great. It's perfect. And certainly assists in first call resolution when the user calls. But I said that one thing would be better than first call resolution, and that is not having to call because nothing broke. Okay, so how would we get there? Well, I mentioned problem management. So problem management, if we decide that certain incidents or groups of incidents or volumes of incidents we should get rid of them. We don't want them anymore. We want to kill them. I like to say kill them and never see them again. So how would we do that? Well, in ITIL, we declare them a problem, which means a human being has stated we're going to go after these. And when I say we're going after them, I mean we're going to commit technical resources, technical people, funds if necessary, diagnostic tools, and time to finding the root cause of those incidents and getting rid of them. Okay, sounds good. If that happens, if we do that and do that well, and problem management is mature, so the way we described incident management was get the user back up and running as quickly as possible. So a mature incident management process gets the user back up and running as quickly as possible. Whatever that takes, it's reboot. Click this, reconfigure it this way, click this thing, and everything will be fine. Whatever it takes, the user's back up, life is good. And let me describe this a little bit, because I need to take an aside and talk about incident management the way ITIL thinks of it versus the way maybe geeks think of it. So I'll just give you a real quick sample call of a user. A user calls in and says, "I can't print." Help desk says, I'm sorry, you can't print. Which machine do you have in front of you? Which and specifically which component are you trying to print to a network printer? And which printer are you trying to print to? I'm sorry, a big gray one in the corner doesn't work for me. Could you give me an actual address or name on the printer? What are you trying to print from? What application? Word. Have you tried printing from Excel? Okay, no, you haven't done that. Which version of Windows are you on? Have you accepted the updates from Microsoft? Normal diagnostic stuff that almost every service desk would get into. But let me give you a different approach. I can't print. I'm sorry, you can't print. What's your time frame? My what? When do you need to print? I need to print now. I needed to print 5 minutes ago. I'm trying to print the agenda for the meeting that I'm going to. I can't get a stupid piece of paper out of the printer and because I don't know what's wrong with this stupid machine. Well, let's get that file. Are you trying to print that from Word? Right. Yeah. I'm trying to print it from Word. Okay, well, let's get that file to somebody who can get you a hard copy. You can make some copies and get to your meeting. We'll leave the printing incident open until we both have time. That's ITIL incident management, which basically focuses completely on the user. Yes, there's a technical issue. Something's wrong, but we're going to leave that incident open because we're trying to fix the user and get them back up and running. In this case, get them to their meeting as quickly as possible. When they come back from the meeting, maybe it's even tomorrow, we'll work on that printing incident. We can even call them back and say, do you have some time now? We could work on that printing incident. Tools can help us because we can put in reminders and ticklers and things like that into that stuff. So back to problem management. If problem management works well and is mature within an organization, then what will happen is the number of incidents will be reduced, especially the number of repeat incidents will be reduced. When the number of repeat incidents gets reduced, the number of first call resolution may actually go down. And the reason is because now the repeat incidents aren't there. So suddenly what's coming in via the service desk is new stuff. So the new stuff, just like anyone else, is more confusing to the people answering the phone. The length of the call will probably be longer. The average time to answer, because the length of call is now longer, average time to answer at the service desk will probably go up, and first call resolution may well go down. At the same time that user satisfaction is going up because the users don't have as much reason to call and the infrastructure is more stable, et cetera. So process maturity and different processes in ITIL can definitely affect first call resolution in what we believe is a positive way, but when you're a service desk manager and you're trying to get a high number in first call resolution, you may actually be doing better and the number may be going down. So people have to be careful as to what that means. So how does the CMDB help to achieve better first call resolution? Well, there's no question that if I had a configuration management system, CMDB, that was mature and populated with all of the configuration data for all the various configuration items, and that CMDB or configuration management system was truly a federated model or single source of truth of what the configuration or infrastructure looks like, I could use that information to help me resolve incidents much more quickly. I could use it to get to the root cause of problems much more quickly. I could use it to assess the impact of changes, of future changes, much more quickly. But the other piece of this is that if first call resolution in the next bullet, if I have a CMDB that enables me to tie incidents to a specific configuration item so that I could go to a specific server and say, boy, that server seems to have incidents against it like every day. I don't know why that would be true, but it does. And so we suddenly flag that server as, for a technical term, flaky. We don't know why that server is going bad, but that server needs help. And we really don't understand that. So we then pass a ticket on to somebody smarter, While we're dealing with the users and dealing with incidents and making the users capable of getting back up and running, and maybe we're redirecting them to a different print spooler or print server or something of that nature, users are working, but we still see all these tickets going against this server. We can pass that on to more technical people, whether it's problem management or whether it's really just a second level of incident management, and say, can somebody deal with this server because it certainly appears to be flaky. We could not do that without the tool. It would be impossible for us to start tying various incidents to a specific CI in the configuration system unless we had an effective tool to pull that off. The other piece of that is, what if that, and I'll use fake names so it doesn't matter. So what if that server was the ABC brand 1512 server? And we happen to own a lot of those 1500-12 servers. And we see that when we finally get to the root cause of this, that indeed we would like to, we go, whoa, it needs a real configuration change, maybe even a hardware change for that specific server to stop being flaky. Well, then we can proactively say, does that issue exist? Potentially, is it a latent issue that's just waiting to come forward that on the other 1500-12s? If so, let's proactively go out and fix it in advance, in which case we're now doing proactive problem management, which will reduce the number of incidents and make the users happier. They will be more satisfied because things are more stable, the infrastructure is stronger and better. How deep do we need to go into the CMDB? That is the question of a lifetime, $64,000 question. So what does that mean? It means how much of a given configuration item, we'll just pick a server, how deep do I need to go? Do I really need to know the revision level on the motherboard? Or can I just say, well, this server has a 500 gig hard drive. It's a Western Digital. It's got this much memory and this much this, and it runs the following level of Exchange software or SQL software or whatever. It's Windows 2008 Server R2. All those types of things, those would be, I guess, somewhat interesting. But how deep do we need to go? Do we need to know exactly this or exactly that, or when this happened or when that happened? I can't make that call. And ITIL can't make that call. You need to make that call in terms of how deep and how much information you really want to go to in the CMDB. ITIL's comment on that is go as deep as is useful. And the reason is because the deeper you go, the more effort there is to maintain the accuracy and maintain it. What will this all look like in 5 years? I think that we need to start paying attention to social media, because I think that the users of today and the users of tomorrow are very attuned and very comfortable with social media, whether it's internal enterprise collaboration platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever. This is where I think a lot of the future communication is, and the service desk is definitely responsible from ITIL's perspective for communication between the IT group and the business and user. Okay. Whoops. Sorry. So let's take a quick look at a few slides, and then I'll turn it over to Erin because she's smarter than I am. I'm old and grumpy.
I'm not so sure about that, George.
So I talked about this. So the idea looks like this. I've got an incident record or an incident ticket, or I have 20 incidents, and I may want to link them to in the tool. I want them to be able to be linked to maybe a single problem record, because truthfully, the incidents, of course, might be the same thing, have the same root cause. So those 20 incidents, I want to be able to tie them to a single problem, and that single problem may require a change in order to fix it and permanently remove it. And those change, we're not going to talk about release, but release management changes would be a subset, if you will, of release in some cases. So release is like a parent-child change relationship. All of this then could be monitored and would have people associated with it. So let's talk about what that means. Well, there would be a customer who called in with the incident. There would be an analyst who is handling the incident right now. There may be another analyst that it's escalated to, maybe even another one, a geek higher up, that it's escalated to. I'd want to know all that within the incident record, and I'd want the tool to keep track of that as well. Now, all of this should be able to update some statuses and things of that in the configuration management system. So what you see on the screen right now is how, or not so much that, or what we're doing. Now the question is, how good do we do it? And the answer on that is that's governed by service levels. So now we talk about the fact that, well, how fast do we need to resolve a given incident? And the answer to that is, well, what have you told the user community you would do? How fast did you say you would do it? How good did you promise you would be? Because that's what service level agreements are in my world. They're promises. So how good did you say? So let's say we did a service level agreement which says we're going to 97% of the time we will resolve severity level 1 incidents within 4 hours. Okay, so I would want to be able to put that in the tool, and I would want the tool to be able to have some internal clocks that make that possible. Because that doesn't just happen where we give it to somebody and send them off and 4 hours later they come back with a resolution. That's not what really happens. What really happens is I've got multiple people in multiple departments involved in severity level 1. I've got escalation and moving it around the organization. I have ownership issues which should not ever leave the service desk. I have a lot of issues, and those are only going to work. And it's only going to be possible for me to meet that kind of SLA if I have an effective tool to keep reminding me and keep the clock going. Not the user clock and then my clock, the IT clock, which could be multiple little clocks that add up to one user clock, which is the 4 hours. Okay. So let's keep going here. I want to give Aaron some time. Critical policy documents. These are documents that people don't think of as policies. So in other words, we have I mentioned a prioritization scheme, SEV 1, SEV 2, SEV 3. That's really a document. It's not, the tool allows for it to happen. It allows you to put priority or assign priorities to each incident, and allows you to change the priority as it moves through its life. It may even implement automatic changes in priority where a SEV 2 that sits and nobody's looking at it for 24 hours, maybe it becomes a SEV 1. Whatever. The point is that priority is something you as an organization have to decide, and what's important. What does SEV 1 mean? Is it number of people affected? Is it a given function down? What is it? You have to make that decision, and that becomes part of the urgency factor. It may spread down to prioritization of problems and prioritization of changes associated with that. Categorization scheme. Categories are something which people struggle with on a continual basis. The tool allows them to happen. The tool allows you a place to put different categories in. But once again, it's the organization that decides what categories are important and which ones are not. Why do I need categories? Not for operational use, but for reporting use later on. For grouping of incidents, for trend analysis and reporting after the fact. It's not really for the operational side of things. That's more in the SLA side, severity level, things like that. Assignment. How do things get assigned to other people? Is there a support SLA versus an availability SLA? All of that's part of a policy document. How do we escalate? What notifications happen outside of IT, perhaps, or up the chain of IT as the escalation goes up, and maybe as the time keeps going on, but the issue is still open. There's a change authorization. Who can authorize specific types of changes? Those kinds of things. All of that becomes part of the game in terms of critical policy documents. Plenty more to talk about. Just a little categorization overview, and I'm just going to skip this because it's a boring slide. Okay, so here's just another concept where we're saying that not only do I tie in incidents and problems, which are very operational, but often the problem leads to change. Change becomes part of a release, which may be a bigger deal. I may decide to not do upgrades except at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, things like that. And all of this every piece of this ties back to the configuration system and the configuration management system that would be part of the tool. So some key questions. I'll turn it over to Aaron after this. We constantly see people buying tools kind of on a one-off basis. They don't really look at the entire enterprise. We see them buying redundant tools, and it doesn't make sense. So we want people at Pink, at least we want people to have an enterprise tool strategy, an enterprise tool architecture. And the questions here are, is there any group within the enterprise anywhere that has a mandate to develop such a strategy and avoid that kind of duplication and wasted effort and wasted money? And if you have that group, are tools purchased right now by IT function like networking group and server group and database group, are they purchased by technical silo? And if they are, does it come out of a centralized or enterprise tool budget, or does it come out of that individual silo's budget? The end result of all these questions simply is you really need a better look at an enterprise tool strategy because, quite frankly, we're wasting lots of money buying redundant tools by doing it the way we're doing now in IT. I think